Well, thank you indeed for staying with us here on KTN Business today. My name is Peter Akabon. This second part of the show, we talk about matters agriculture, the markets, and the general economy. We want to start you off at the coast, where Magarini sub-county in Kilifi County is amongst areas that has a population that solely depends on subsistence, maize farming, and pastoralism. Farmers have, however, started embracing modern farming courtesy of the county government and its agricultural department. Here is more with Ashley Mazuri.
A visit to Sosoni village reveals the new way of farming among the population, with many now having abandoned growing the traditional maize seed and substituted it with quick maturing crops. With unreliable rain patterns, the area has been in the news for negative reasons of either severe drought or extensive flooding. Renson Kambi, a farmer, has discovered a new kind of crop that requires less investment but can rake in millions of shillings when well taken care of. He grows green grams on his 32-acre farm.
Niligundua kwamba kuna mradi mwingine ambao unaweza fanya, ambao unaweza panda na ukafanya vizuri hata kushinda mahindi.
The crop takes a maximum of 2 months in the farm, and that output per acre is very promising. After years of soul searching, Renson bumped into Magarini sub-county agricultural officers a few months ago, who advised him to change the mode of farming if he was to reap big from his expensive farm.
Na wao vile wanapenda kutegemea mahindi, tunawaambia wasitegemee mahindi. Waanze kupanda mimea kama pojo, kunde, mihogo, mtama ambayo haihitaji mvua nyingi.
According to Kambi, 1 acre of green grams produces 4 to 5 90-kilogram bags of the crop, and each bag fetches 9,000 shillings in the market. Unlike maize, where the same farm size will produce almost 6 90-kilogram bags, which sell for a paltry of 3,000 shillings. According to Magarini sub-county agricultural officers, embracing modern farming methods in agribusiness will allow the people of Magarini to have enough food for themselves and surplus for sale.
Well, on that optimistic note from Magarini constituency, we want to come back here to studio, this time focus on the economy itself and what has been driving it this week to, well, sink his teeth into that. With me in studio is Ken Gichinga, chief economist at Mentoria Consulting. He is a man who has an in-depth look at what exactly is swaying this economy at any given time. Karibu sana.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, first off, I want to start off on an interesting note. Let's talk Bitcoin, not get into it.
Right.
But talk about this craze that has everybody going gaga, government itself having tried to outlaw it.
Right.
We are seeing the fact that this thing has recently hit $10,000 and things like that.
Right.
For most people, the question on their minds is this a pyramid scheme, a Ponzi scheme, or is it kosher?
I mean, I think it's one of the most interesting things happening in the world of digital currency. Every week I get about 3 phone calls of people inquiring about Bitcoin.
Yes.
What is it? What's the difference between that and other digital currencies?
Yes.
M-Pesa is a digital currency. And for me, I find it's younger people who are asking more about Bitcoin than the most. And I think the recent story of the young man who paid his dowry using Bitcoin, that kind of generated some interest.
Yes.
I would have loved to see the central bank embrace it. I think it's an area that most global economies have embraced. It's still very new territory because it involves things like mining, some complex themes that a lot of people don't understand. I didn't like the fact that the central bank just decided to do away with it.
Yes.
I wish they had created a study group to just sort of like isolate it, but get experts to sort of like try and understand what are its strengths, what are its weaknesses before making a final recommendation. I think they sort of like did away with it way too early. And for me, I think that was a mistake, because if you think of something like M-Pesa, which was also the first of its kind, had M-Pesa been treated to such tough approach, we would never have sort of like money transfer. So today, so I was really hoping.
Then maybe what it needs is a champion, because M-Pesa, I remember in the beginning, took a lot of flack from the likes of the then finance minister, John Michuki.
Right.
But because of the persistence of its champions at Safaricom and others, it literally took off. Do we need to see a sort of first consumer education?
Right.
Secondly, we have all these sorts of clubs and bodies that are pushing it. We used to have this thing about online currency trading. Now it seems to have shifted to this sort of thing. Should it be buyer beware?
Well, I think you're right in terms of education.
Yes.
And I think that's already happening. Actually, if you talk to a lot of young people who have an interest in Bitcoin,
Yes.
they're part of clubs that meet every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. There are conference calls where people log in. And we have a whole Bitcoin Association of Kenya.
Yes.
If you go to many of these universities, there are many sessions.
Yes.
So for me, it's strange that it's only generating interest with the younger
The youth,
demographics. I've not seen any sort of like a serious professors, for example, sort of engage it in a more rigorous way. So it seems it's something that's captured the imagination of young people,
Yes.
the ability that you can even make a salary out of it. We read about somebody who's making about $5,000 a month just from mining and trading Bitcoin. But the central component of it is we have to say, what is Bitcoin?
Yes.
And we have to also ask ourselves, what is a currency?
Yes.
A currency is any medium that can facilitate trade.
Yes.
If you remember back the days of business education, we learned what are the 4 features of a currency.
Yes.
It's a medium of exchange. It's a store of value.
Yes.
I can't remember what the other 2 were, but those are the 2 most.
Something that is readily transferable.
Exactly, and
Yes.
has some national acceptance.
Yes.
And by the central bank withdrawing that national acceptance, it means it can't be used to trade. It can be legal tender.
Yes.
In the sense of that sort.
Yeah, but indeed I know that we'll have a hard time because it is a virtual currency. But moving away from that, let's turn our attention. Of course, Bitcoin is a thing that we'll keep coming back to because of all the interest it has continued to generate. But let's look at Kenya Airways,
Right.
The upheaval that it has seen this week, and the counter jumping some 245% at some point after the relisting. What do you see going forward? I know a lot of people have burnt their fingers several times in its different reincarnations.
That's true.
Yeah.
And I think Kenya Airways is a very exciting company.
Yes.
I think despite the challenges it's faced,
Yes.
it has this iconic element to it. It's like Safaricom, like Uchumi, for example. These are
Yes.
they really resonate with the country's image. So I think for a lot of people, when KQ started making serious losses, that, as you say, a lot of people burnt their fingers
Yes.
in trading shares. So it was very exciting to see the stock price going from 5 shillings to 12 shillings. That's almost 100% jump. Moving forward, obviously, the ownership structure has changed. Now we have about 49% being government. We have, I think, 38% being commercial banks, and obviously other investors coming in. I think we're going to see a much more structured KQ.
Yes.
Obviously, they say the leadership team too also has significant experience in flight management.
Are we going to learn from mistakes made? Because, of course, there were lots of things that happened in the past that people might say contributed to its downfall.
Well, I think there are 2 types of mistakes. You can make strategic mistakes
Yes.
in terms of just having a wrong understanding of the market, but you can also have governance and corruption. And I think it seems the latter
Yes.
was
the challenge. Yes.
Even though Project Mawingo had inherent challenges, I
Yes.
think the bigger issue was around governance. And you read it in the dailies every day
Yes.
on how sort of like a lot of things are not happening in the right way at that time. So it's governance issue. So I think if they can resolve at least the governance part,
Yes.
if you look at the latest flight reports, aviation reports, air travel in Africa is going to go up by almost 30%
Yes.
over the next 5 years. So as an industry, it's a very robust
Yes.
industry, yes.
So that discussion then is a good jumping point for us to discuss governance and the economy and the fact that these are things we keep saying.
Right.
If it was up to you, if we gave you carte blanche and gave you this big whip, what are the things you do to get this economy up and running?
Right.
Of course, with the governance issues that we are talking about having been nipped in the bud,
Right.
especially bearing in view that with the swearing in, we are now supposed to get back to the grind and start to push this economy forward. What are those things that we have to get right over the next 5 years?
That's a fantastic question. Well, if you look at the study of economics, economics came up from political economy. And political economy means you have to consider the political angle and unifying Kenyans. Because you can have the best laid plans, but if all hands are not on deck, if the aeroplane is flying on one engine, then you're never going to achieve double digits. So I think if you look at the inauguration speech, when the president extended an olive branch to the opposition, I think that's very, very important that every Kenyan effort is focused in the same direction. So I think the unifying part, in as much as it's not an economic sort of like theory, but the idea of bringing Kenyans together has such big economic significance that I think in the first 100 days, that needs to be in terms of appointments, in terms of just having a face of Kenya representing that. Once we are done with that, then of course now it's looking at revenue generation. One of the challenges we have in Kenya, even if you look at the counties, we have numerous assets. Many of these counties, as we were discussing earlier, have minerals, for example. They have a lot of natural resources, but we've not discovered how to monetize our natural resources. There's gold in Nandi, for example, but how many people are monetizing it in the sense that they can say they are among the top millionaires in dollar terms? Almost none, very, very few. So I think for us is how do you convert assets into revenue? And I think that's why strategic plans in the counties start coming in. And I think I've started seeing in the papers, lots of counties starting having blueprints, sort of like,
It's a good thing that you brought up devolution, because there are those who contend that national government continues to sabotage that. Case in point, some counties, and all the counties, haven't seen any funds in nearly 5-6 months. We keep hearing that chorus. And then, of course, the fact that there seems to be no capacity to either do the things we're saying, run absorption, development projects, that sort of thing, to run at the counties. What are the things we need to start doing to ensure that we start to develop this capacity and then give the citizens the capacity themselves to be able to hold those accountable?
Well, I think the county governments need to work hand in hand with the national government. In as much as they are legal, independent entities, they need to work hand in hand and they need to organize. If you saw what the Vision 2030 latest report is, they said a lot of counties are not implementing the Vision 2030 sort of blueprint. So it means there's some sort of conflict between the Vision 2030 blueprint and the county integrated development plan, which is the 5-year county strategic plan. So they need to harmonize that. I think that's the first step. The second step is also the funding part you mentioned. There was a legislation change that has been corrected. I think the latest position right now is only 8 counties. Out of the 47, I think only 8 of them right now haven't received dues. And I think there's some sort of like workaround around that. So that's changed. But again, when this money goes to counties, we have to ask for accountability. For me, I've always asked, why can't we have quarterly disclosures? The way companies have quarterly reports, why can't counties start having town hall meetings and having quarterly?
Is that possible with the sort of bureaucracy that goes into disbursement of cash and that sort of thing? Would we be able to make it real time such that if it's disbursed in June or July, then by December, this cash has been to the counties, gone through the motions, and we can get a report back?
Now you're talking about the issues around IFMIS, and we knew IFMIS had a lot of inherent challenges. We saw it sort of like crashing several times. A lot of people were not sure whether it was deliberate, people trying to interfere with it, or whether it was just a technical hitch. But if IFMIS as a tool, it's been designed to create a lot of transparency between how money moves from the national government to the county government. Now, the county governments too have a responsibility to report back on what they're strategic, and in terms of absorption rates, they have a big significance in terms of like the county development plan.
Finally, in the year 2007, after we saw the post-election violence, when we came back, we had this thing called the economic stimulus package, which spoke to different parts of the country and created not just rejuvenation of the economy, but a lot of hope and an upbeat sort of nature for people out there, so that they really were happy to work because they were seeing this circulation of cash and that sort of thing. Case in point, the reduction in the cash reserve ratios at the central bank for a lot of banks. What can we do this time round to jumpstart this economy?
I think, first of all, we need to get rid of the interest rate cap. I think that is killing liquidity in the economy because it means banks are not lending. Second of all, we need to be very careful, because I hear a lot of people talking of austerity measures,
Yes.
that we need to cut back on fiscal spending. If you look at examples from Europe,
Yes.
that never ever works. What you need to do is you need to stimulate an economy. Either you create a stimulus plan,
Yes.
or, I mean, that happened in 2007, and that was after the post-election violence.
Yes.
So there was a need to sort of rejuvenate. And
Yes.
if you look at economic history, that's how you, especially in a war-torn period, that's how you rejuvenate. Even in World War II, remember they had the Marshall Plan,
Yes.
where they sort of tried to stimulate. And
So
for
a
me,
Marshall Plan for Kenya.
sort of like a milder Marshall Plan, because we are not really a
Yes.
war-torn economy.
Yes.
But if you look at money growth of credit supply,
Yes.
it's growing
It's
at
actually,
almost 2-3%.
Yes.
This economy needs at least 20 to 25% growth. So it means we are underperforming by almost 20%
Wow.
in terms of credit supply. So if we remove that interest rate cap, if we have some form of county stimulus packages, where
Yes.
we have very strategic areas. It's
Yes.
not just money going anywhere, but in marketplaces, creating access to marketplaces, then absolutely, I think we can start talking about the double digits growth.
okay. Indeed, thank you very much, sir, for taking the time to talk to us. Ken Gichinga is a chief economist at Mentoria Consulting. Of course, the fact that we could have said that the country does need to go forward and indeed needs to look at radical measures to enable the economy get back on its feet after all this politicking, about 6 months of it. But we will leave some for next week. Asante sana.
Thank you so much.
Well, indeed, that is where we want to bring it to a close here on KTN Business today. It has been an interesting week with all the developments in the world of business. We will be back at the same time next week at 3 p.m. with more on Monday Business. Of course, you can continue to catch the news here on KTN because the news does continue. Up next is Mbiu with news from the regions and indeed here in Nairobi in the Kiswahili language.